You'll stop buying suya from the street after watching this video. Thin, aromatic smoke rose from the meat skewers Malam Sani carefully grilled over still glowing embers. "One more suya for Mrs. Mariam," he called firmly, handing over the juicy skewer. The woman smiled in satisfaction, licking her fingers as she returned to her stall. Around them, the morning market was starting to bustle, but a sizable line had already formed in front of Malam Sani's small stand. "You came early today, Malam Sani," commented a plump man, adjusting his turban while waiting patiently. "The skewers are better than ever." Sani smiled, but said nothing. His expression was always calm, almost distant, while his skilled hands prepared each suya with a dexterity that seemed almost supernatural. The charcoal smoke blended with the scent of spices, permeating the hot air of the marketplace. Few knew much about him. No one knew where Malam Sani had come from, where he lived, or how he managed to provide so much meat for so many customers every day. All that was known was that each morning, even before the sun fully rose, he was already there with his large pots and skewers, ready to grill and serve. And no matter how many people came, the suya never ran out. Nearby, fruit and vegetable vendors observed him with suspicious eyes. Some murmured among themselves, trying to figure out how the man could maintain his extraordinary success, while others struggled to sell their produce. The market was held in the village of Gidan Daji, a small community surrounded by dry plains and sparse trees. The people there lived off farming and local trade, and the market was the heart of the village, the meeting place for business, news, and of course food. Malam Sani was a man of few words. He had no known family in the village, and no one had ever seen him outside the market. Occasionally, when asked where he came from, he simply gave an enigmatic smile and changed the subject. Some said he came from a distant village. Others believed he had a connection to ancient rituals. However, nobody doubted the quality of the suya he sold. The meat was always tender, perfectly seasoned, and accompanied by a blend of pepper, peanuts, and other secret spices that left customers craving more. The flavor was unique, irresistible. Traders and villagers came from afar to taste it, and Malam Sani's fame grew by the day. As the first rays of sunlight painted the sky orange, the line in front of his stand already stretched down the dirt street. The village chief, Sarkin Bello, sent his assistants to ensure no one went without the famous suya during festivals or important meetings. No one wanted a gathering without the special taste of Malam Sani's cooking. At the height of morning activity, the market was a constant buzz. Women sold colorful fabrics, men exchanged seeds, children ran between stalls, and the scent of sizzling suya filled the air, drawing even those with no intention of buying food. It was impossible to resist. Still, the mystery of Malam Sani persisted. He arrived before everyone else, even before the roosters crowed, and was always the last to leave, packing his utensils and disappearing as quickly as he appeared. His stand never seemed empty, and no one had ever seen the inside of his home, located in an isolated corner of the village, surrounded by shrubs and shadows. Some began to wonder if he had some secret source of wealth or hidden powers. There were rumors he made deals with forest spirits to keep his business thriving. Others believed his spices were enchanted to addict anyone who tasted his suya. None of these rumors were confirmed, but they fueled the conversations around the fires at nightfall. Malam Sani, however, calmly continued his work, unconcerned by the speculations. He appeared immune to suspicious glances and mean-spirited comments. For him, all that mattered was offering the best possible food. "Malam Sani, where does all this meat for so much suya come from every day?" asked a curious young girl, approaching cautiously. He looked at her, his calm, penetrating gaze steady, as he answered quietly, "From the right place, child. The secret lies in patience and dedication." The girl didn't quite understand, but she returned to her mother with shining eyes, eager to talk about the mysterious cook. As the market continued to buzz, shadows gathered among neighboring stalls. Some vendors watched with envy, others with suspicion. Among them was Hadiza, a veteran vendor of traditional foods, who frowned upon seeing the endless lines at Malam Sani's stand. She had tried everything to compete, but no one wanted her stew or meat anymore. Hadiza felt a bitter mix of frustration and jealousy. She woke up early, prepared everything with care and love, yet her stalls remained empty while Malam Sani seemed to have an endless supply of customers. "It's not fair," she muttered to herself. "How does he feed so many people with so little meat? There must be something wrong." But the truth was, even Hadiza's children and husband preferred to buy the mysterious man's suya. This left her uneasy and uncomfortable at home. She heard the children excitedly describing the unmatched flavor and saw her husband returning with skewers from Malam Sani instead of her food. Meanwhile, with each portion served, the aroma of Malam Sani's suya spread through the village's warm air, filling every corner of the market with an irresistible promise of flavor and satisfaction. The man's secret remained guarded, and with each passing day, the mystery only deepened. The sun was already high as Hadiza slowly walked through the market, her expression heavy with frustration and envy. Her hands, calloused from years of work, tightly held the empty baskets that should have been filled with her specialties, stew and roasted meat. But on that day, like so many others, her customers had vanished, drawn instead to the long lines forming at Malam Sani's stand. She stopped for a moment, observing from afar. The crowd around Sani was intense, almost like a sacred ritual. People of all ages waited patiently, savoring the aroma of spices and embers. Hadiza pressed her lips in anger. "How can he do this?" she thought. "Where does he get so much meat? And how is his suya always so perfect?" Next to her, other women selling traditional food exchanged worried glances and suspicious murmurs. "It's been weeks since the market has felt the same," one of them grumbled, scratching her head. "We work hard, yet nobody wants our stew." "That Malam Sani is strange," said another younger woman. "Nobody knows where he's from. Seems like there's some kind of magic in his food." Hadiza felt hatred grow inside her. She'd also heard what the children said at home, begging their father to buy Sani's suya. Her own family was drifting away from her, won over by the irresistible flavor of the mysterious cook. In the silence of her kitchen, she struggled to uncover which spice or secret had stolen her place. That night, arriving home, Hadiza threw her empty baskets onto the kitchen floor with force. The noise echoed throughout the house, and her husband Musa, resting on the porch, looked at her curiously. "How was the market today?" he asked, without getting up. "Terrible," Hadiza replied bitterly. "While that man's stand was crowded, my food was forgotten. Nobody wants to buy from me." Musa shrugged, nearly indifferent. "I ate his suya today, Hadiza. It was delicious. The meat so tender, the seasoning perfect. You should try it sometime." Her husband's words fell like an unexpected blow. Hadiza felt her heart tighten, jealousy and anger bubbling inside her. Her eyes widened and she abruptly stood up. "You ate his suya?" Her voice trembled, blending shock and indignation. Musa nodded, unaware of the storm he'd caused. "Yes, it was great. You should admit, Hadiza, he knows what he's doing." Her eyes filled with tears. It wasn't just the taste bothering her, but the fact that even her own family seemed to abandon her cooking for Malam Sani's. In the following days, the children returned from school, complaining that Hadiza's stew didn't taste as good as the suya they bought at the market. "Mom, Malam Sani's suya is better," they insisted. With every word, Hadiza felt her pride crumble. How could she compete against a man who seemed to conjure magic into his dishes? Frustration consumed her. One night, after everyone had fallen asleep, Hadiza lay awake, staring at the modest ceiling. She thought of everything she had tried, new recipes, stronger spices, promotions to attract customers, and nothing had worked. Malam Sani's success seemed unbeatable, almost supernatural. She wondered if there wasn't some trick, Something hidden behind that man's stall, enabling him to feed so many people and still keep his business strong day after day. The rumors circulating through the market about deals, magic and secrets started to feel more real to her. The next morning, Hadiza decided to watch Malam Sani more closely. She arrived early at the market, set up her stall, but kept her eyes fixed on the cook's stand. She watched him calmly prepare the skewers, tend the embers, smile discreetly at customers. And once again, she saw the lines grow as if it were a natural phenomenon. Meanwhile, some women began whispering among themselves, spreading doubts and suspicions. Mama Hadiza overheard a conversation near her stall. "I heard Malam Sani doesn't even live in the village," a vendor whispered. "He appears only at the market. No one's ever seen him at home." Another, with suspicious eyes, added, "What if he's using spells to attract customers? I've seen strange things around here." Their voices grew louder, suspicion turning into fear and hatred. Hadiza felt her blood boil. This isn't natural, she thought. Someone has to do something. She tried copying Malam Sani's recipes, testing spices, imitating his grilling style, but the results never matched. The crowd still preferred Sani's suya, while her own customers dwindled each day. Rumors spread like fire through dry grass, and some people began warning others about the danger of eating Malam Sani's suya. "Be careful with his suya," one of the women warned gravely. "Who knows what he puts in there?" But despite the growing wave of rumors and fear, most villagers ignored the stories and continued lining up, waiting for that unmistakable flavor. The village chief, Sarkin Bello, never spoke publicly on the matter, but sent his servants to buy suya for parties and important ceremonies. After all, nobody wanted to miss the taste that had made Malam Sani famous. Hadiza returned home that afternoon, her face marked by defeat. While cleaning the few utensils that remained, she thought of her family, those who now preferred another man's food. Jealousy ate her from within. "They're betraying me," she muttered, alone. Resentment filled her thoughts, and quiet determination began to emerge. Something had to be done to reclaim her place and honor in the market. Malam Sani's success couldn't continue unchallenged. As soon as the first dawn light painted the sky, Hadiza was already at the market, preparing her stall with a serious face and restless hands. The aroma of Malam Sani's suya, as always, permeated the air, attracting a crowd around him. Hadiza felt the weight of silence and the glances that gradually shifted from her empty stall to the growing line around the mysterious cook. She tried focusing on arranging her spices, but the anger simmering in her chest wouldn't leave her. Her gaze scanned the crowd and inevitably landed on Musa, her husband, who was calmly walking towards Malam Sani's stand. Hadiza's heart raced, a mix of jealousy and helplessness burning within her chest. When Musa approached the stand, he greeted Malam Sani with a smile and patiently waited his turn, while Hadiza watched from afar, her breath becoming uneven. It felt as though the world around her had narrowed down to just that moment. Suddenly, consumed by restrained fury, Hadiza shoved through the crowd forcefully, marching straight toward the cook's stand. The entire market seemed to fall silent as she spoke, her loud and emotion-filled voice cutting through the murmur of customers. "Malam Sani, I need you to stop selling suya to my family, my husband, my children. They shouldn't be buying from you." A look of surprise swept through the crowd. Vendors paused their transactions, and conversations ceased, everyone looking toward Hadiza and Malam Sani, waiting for a reaction from the man who dominated the market. Sani slowly raised his eyes, his expression serene and his movements calm, and replied without showing any irritation, "Hadiza, I don't make anyone buy anything. I sell suya to those who want to buy it. They come to me because they're hungry." The crowd began whispering, torn between sympathy for Hadiza's frustration and admiration for Malam Sani's calm demeanor. Some women murmured among themselves, secretly rooting for Hadiza to continue, while others watched the confrontation with a mix of amusement and concern. Hadiza took a deep breath, trying to control the anger threatening to overflow, and responded with a firm voice. "You're taking customers from those who work hard, who wake up early and fight to support their families. How can you stand here and watch your line grow while my stall stays empty?" Sani maintained his composure and spoke softly, almost as if delivering a lesson. "I work hard as well, Hadiza. The difference is, people come because they like what I make. I'm not taking anyone from anywhere." The murmuring intensified in the crowd. Some discreetly applauded, others looked toward Hadiza with empathy. She felt her husband's gaze upon her, impassive, while her shame intensified. "Do you think you're better than all of us?" Hadiza continued, her voice trembling with emotion. "That you can come here and steal all our customers?" Malam Sani slowly shook his head. "No, I just do the best I can. People choose where they want to eat. You can't force anyone to like your suya." The confrontation had created palpable tension in the market. People whispered anxiously, some hoping the dispute wouldn't escalate into violence, others admiring Hadiza's courage in facing the man who seemed unbeatable. "Please, Hadiza," said an older woman selling fruit, stepping forward. "It's not worth losing your temper over this. Let him make his suya and you keep making yours. People will choose what they want." Hadiza shook her head, her eyes filling with tears threatening to fall. "But they won't choose mine," she whispered, before turning and leaving the stand, leaving the market even more agitated. Throughout the day, conversations at the market revolved around the confrontation. Some sympathized with Hadiza. Others admired Malam Sani for his composure and the quality of his suya. But one thing was certain, Malam Sani's fame continued to grow, while Hadiza felt her world crumbling. When the market finally closed, Hadiza returned home, her face marked by exhaustion, her spirit wounded. Musa was sitting on the porch, looking towards the horizon. She approached and sat next to him without saying a word. He turned to her and spoke calmly. "You did what you thought was right, Hadiza, but people choose what they want." She let out a heavy sigh, feeling the weight of defeat and loneliness engulfing her. As night fell, Hadiza pondered what she could do to reclaim her place and dignity. Malam Sani's suya was more than just food. It symbolized his power and mystery, and she was determined to uncover the secret that kept him at the top. She wouldn't rest until she understood how he did it and reclaimed her space in the market. Yet the mystery remained impenetrable, and Malam Sani's shadow seemed to grow larger with each passing day. Night fell silently upon the village of Gidandaji, covering everything with a cool, dark blanket. While most homes sank into the quiet of rest, Hadiza remained awake, her heart heavy with anguish and resentment. Malam Sani's calm words echoed in her mind, as did the irresistible flavor of the suya he prepared. Determined to discover the secret of the man who had stolen her place and her family's admiration, Hadiza made a decision that would change her life forever. She waited until the market was empty, until the last stalls were dismantled and the village lights began to fade. With cautious steps, she put on her robe and slipped out the door, careful not to wake her husband. The night air was cold, and stars shimmered in the clear sky, casting faint light upon the dusty roads. Hadiza walked toward the place where Malam Sani set up his stall each day. Her heart pounded anxiously, mixing fear and curiosity. She hid among nearby bushes, patiently waiting for the cook's arrival. Minutes stretched like hours, until finally a figure emerged from the darkness, carrying a large covered basket. It was Malam Sani, moving with a calm that contrasted starkly with Hadiza's tension. He glanced around, as if sensing her presence, but showed no surprise. With silent footsteps, he followed a narrow trail leading away from the village, toward a clearing surrounded by tall trees and dense shadows. With a tight heart, Hadiza decided to follow the mysterious man, keeping her distance so as not to be noticed. The air was thick, and the silence seemed even deeper, broken only by the occasional sound of crickets. As they walked, Hadiza's thoughts swirled between fear of the unknown and determination to uncover the truth. When they arrived at the clearing, Malam Sani stopped and placed the basket on the ground, carefully surveying his surroundings. Hadiza hesitated, but her curiosity pushed her forward slightly, hidden behind a tree. Suddenly, Sani crouched next to a moss-covered stone and struck the ground with his hand, revealing a hidden compartment. To Hadiza's horror, an inert figure slowly emerged from the earth, a lifeless body covered in dirt and decay. Her blood froze, and a silent scream caught in her throat. Malam Sani began cutting pieces of flesh from the figure, as calmly as if he were preparing the most ordinary meal in the world. The scene was gruesome, and Hadiza felt waves of nausea and terror wash over her body. She stepped back, nearly stumbling, but was immediately noticed. Sani's eyes turned toward her, gleaming with a cold, threatening light. He rose slowly and, with a calm gesture, murmured words in an ancient language, heavy with power. A strange tingling overtook Hadiza, and the world around her fell utterly silent. Attempting to scream, she realized no sound would come. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred, and an overwhelming sense of isolation gripped her. Malam Sani approached with an unforgiving expression and spoke in a firm, dark voice. "You should have stayed away, Hadiza. Now you'll understand the true meaning of loneliness." Fear consumed her, paralyzing her movements. She tried to flee, but felt as if her legs were rooted to the ground, unable to obey her will. The dark magic surrounding Sani was more powerful than anything she had imagined. As Sani turned away to prepare his grim meal, Hadiza stood immobile and silent, trapped in terrifying stillness. The aura surrounding the clearing felt suffocating, and the scent of spices which once stimulated her appetite now became heavy and menacing. At that moment, Hadiza understood she had entered a world of dark secrets and powers she could never control. The curse upon her was not merely losing her voice and hearing, but the beginning of a torment that would isolate her from the world, imprisoning her in her own fear. Time stretched endlessly as she watched helplessly, while Malam Sani calmly stirred his pots as if nothing had happened. The darkness of the night engulfed everything, and the only certainty was that Hadiza's life would never be the same again. As the fire's final flame flickered, heavy silence took over the clearing, and Hadiza, mute and lost, felt the weight of the curse she now carried, a cruel punishment for daring to unravel a mystery that should have remained hidden forever. The first rays of sunlight filtered timidly through cracks in the window as Hadiza awoke, but something inside her had already changed forever. She tried to speak, to call for help, but her voice refused to come out. The deep, absolute silence was an invisible prison trapping her. She strained to hear any sound, the birds singing, the murmuring of the village, but everything was muted for her. Fear grew stronger each moment, and the anguish of not being able to communicate deepened her despair. At home, Musa noticed his wife's strange behavior. When trying to talk to her, he saw her face contort with frustrated attempts to speak. He watched her confused, unable to understand what was happening. Hadiza gestured with her hands, pointed at her throat, pounded her chest, but he only frowned, unable to comprehend. Their children returned from school, and upon seeing their mother in that state, grew worried. They tried to hear what she wanted to say, but Hadiza remained mute. Sadness engulfed the family, as they found themselves unable to reach Hadiza, submerged in an agonizing loneliness. As days passed, the situation worsened. Hadiza could no longer ask for help, nor express her pain. Silence imprisoned her, making her a captive within her own body. Sadness and fear began eating away at her soul, making each moment heavier than the last. News of her condition spread through the village. People whispered, some with fear, others with compassion, but no one knew how to help. Rumors about Malam Sani and his dark powers began gaining strength among the villagers, who now regarded the cook they once admired with suspicion. One night, when darkness seemed even deeper, Hadiza, overcome by desperation and loneliness, made a tragic decision. She found a small bottle hidden deep in the cupboard, a poison used to keep insects away from the crops. With trembling hands, she drank the bitter contents, unable to bear another day of silent torment. The next morning, Musa found her lifeless on the kitchen floor. An anguished cry escaped his throat, a pure sound of pain that echoed through the village, calling neighbors and friends. The shock was immediate and profound. Hadiza, the strong and hard-working woman, had left without warning, leaving behind a mystery and immense sorrow. Among those rushing to help was Zainab, a young vendor who had known Hadiza since childhood. She felt a mix of sadness and anger rising within herself. She knew something terrible lay behind the tragedy, and despite the pain, she resolved that she needed to uncover the truth. While the village gathered to mourn the loss, doubt and fear settled in. Many began questioning Malam Sani's innocence, and Zainab vowed to herself she would not rest until she revealed the dark secret he hid. The village, previously full of life and bustling with activity during market days, now carried a heaviness in the air, the burden of loss and fear of the unknown. And deep within Zainab's heart grew a silent determination to fight the darkness threatening to destroy everything she loved. The sun blazed over Gidandaji, but the spirit of the village was weighed down. Hadiza's death still hung like a heavy shadow over every face. Among the villagers, a growing sense of fear and distrust was spreading, and no one seemed willing to speak openly about it, except for Zainab. A young spice vendor and close friend of Hadiza, Zainab felt a deep responsibility to uncover the truth behind the mysterious cook, Malam Sani. She knew she couldn't face the man alone, so she decided to seek help in the only place where answers might be found, the Babalawo, the wise healer of the neighboring region. The next morning, heart heavy, Zainab set off toward the nearby town, carrying a small bundle of spices and herbs she hoped to trade for advice and protection. When she arrived at the Babalawo's home, a simple structure surrounded by herbs and ancient symbols, she knocked timidly on the door and waited. The man, with deep-set eyes and a solemn voice, listened attentively to her story. Malam Sani's rise, the mysterious success of his suya, Hadiza's frustration, and finally, the cruel silence that took her friend. He closed his eyes for a moment, sensing the dark energy spreading through the village. "This Malam Sani is no ordinary man," said the Babalawo, his voice heavy with warning. "His secrets are old and dark. Do not face him directly. His magic is strong and dangerous." With a gesture, he handed Zainab a small amulet wrapped in cloth and said, "This will protect you while you search for the truth. Follow him from a distance, watch his steps, but stay in the shadows. Only then will you uncover what he truly hides." Back in Gidandaji, Zainab felt the weight of the amulet around her neck, a constant reminder of the mission she now carried. On the nights that followed, she discreetly trailed Malam Sani, observing his movements without ever being seen. It was on one of those nights, when the village lay in silent sleep, that Zainab witnessed something she would never forget. Malam Sani walked along the same isolated path, carrying a large basket. With her heart pounding, Zainab followed him to the clearing where her friend had once seen such horrors. There, once again, the macabre scene unfolded. Malam Sani unearthed a lifeless body and began preparing its flesh as though it were any other ingredient. The certainty of his monstrosity chilled Zainab's blood. Quietly, she pulled out her phone and began recording, knowing she needed solid proof to convince the people, the king, and anyone who still believed in the cook. But as soon as the dark ritual ended, she slipped away quickly, fear mounting with every step. The next morning, filled with hope, Zainab went to the palace of the Sakin, the village's traditional chief, determined to expose Malam Sani. She told him everything she had seen, showed him the amulet, and spoke passionately about the threat looming over Gidandaji. But to her shock and dismay, the Sakin listened with skepticism. His eyes showed weariness and disbelief. "Zainab," he said firmly, "these are too many stories to believe. Malam Sani is a respected man. His food has been a blessing to our village. I've eaten his suya myself and never felt anything strange." Zainab tried to push back, but the chief interrupted her. "You're wasting your energy on things you cannot prove. Sometimes other people's success bothers us, and that's something you must learn to accept." Without the strength to argue, Zainab left the palace feeling small and defeated. If even the village chief wouldn't listen, who else would? To her surprise, the disappointment didn't stop there. Days later, Musa, Hadiza's widower, approached her in the marketplace, wearing a cold, distant smile. "You should mind your own business, Zainab," he said, his expression a mix of scorn and indifference. "My wife is gone, and I've moved on. You know, Malam Sani and I are together now. He's my future." Zainab was stunned. The man she thought shared her pain and thirst for justice was, in fact, allied with the one responsible for Hadiza's death. The shock pierced Zainab's chest like a sharp blade. She felt betrayed, alone, and more determined than ever to bring down the dark empire of Malam Sani, even if it meant standing against the entire village and Musa himself. With the protection of the amulet and the strength of her spirit, Zainab braced herself for what was to come, knowing the battle against the mysterious cook was far from over, and that the price of truth might be higher than she had ever imagined. An intense and vivid dream jolted Zainab awake in the middle of the night, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. In the dream, an angelic figure, radiant, serene, appeared before her. The voice of the being rang clear and urgent, like a divine command. "Rise now, Zainab. Go to Malam Sani's cabin. There you will find the truth, and the Lord will give you the power to defeat him. His plans are wicked, and time is short." She awoke with a start, the first light of dawn beginning to seep through the crack in the window. The urgency still pulsed within her, mixed with a deep fear, but also with a renewed strength. Zainab knew she was not alone. She felt the protective presence of that celestial being, giving her the courage to face whatever was ahead. With trembling hands, she picked up the Quran her mother had given her as a child, a sacred book she had always kept with reverence and hope. She closed her eyes and prayed for the strength to fulfill her mission. Even in the early morning chill, she felt no cold or doubt. Her path was clear, and faith was her shield. Zainab left the house silently, careful not to wake the neighbors or her husband, still asleep. The path to Malam Sani's cabin looked different at that hour. The shadows of the trees seemed less threatening, and the wind carried a soft sound she couldn't explain. It was as if nature itself conspired in her favor. When she arrived, she crept quietly to the window of the cabin and peeked inside. What she saw made her stomach turn. Malam Sani was kneeling in front of a large, steaming cauldron. He stirred the mixture with a focused gaze, and to her horror, Zainab clearly saw that the meat he was cooking was not from any common animal. It was human. The sight confirmed all her fears. This was the source of the miracle suya that had enchanted the village, but behind it lay a dark and monstrous secret. The smell of spices was stronger than ever, but now it carried an oppressive, threatening weight. Remaining calm, Zainab quietly pulled her phone from her pocket and began recording. She knew she would need concrete proof if the villagers were ever to believe her and if justice was to be served. Suddenly, Malam Sani turned abruptly, his black eyes locking onto hers through the window. His face twisted with fury as he shouted, "You dare challenge me? I possess power beyond your imagination." Zainab felt a chill, but she didn't back down. Clutching the Quran to her chest, she answered with a steady voice, "I do not fear your power, Malam Sani. I carry the word of God, and it is stronger than any darkness you can summon." The cabin filled with a strange and heavy energy. Malam Sani raised his hands, muttering words in an ancient tongue, and a black shadow began to swirl through the room, making the walls tremble. Zainab began reciting verses from the Quran aloud, invoking protection and light against the darkness. The power of the sacred words formed an invisible barrier, repelling Sani's spells. The spiritual battle intensified. Sani hurled curses and enchantments, but each word Zainab spoke became a shield, a ray of light that cut through the shadows. The earth quaked faintly, the flames beneath the cauldron flickered, and the air vibrated with the force of the confrontation. The cursed cook roared in rage, but his power began to weaken. Zainab, though exhausted, felt strengthened by the faith that guided her. She knew she couldn't give up, not now. With a final cry, she raised the Quran above her head and recited a powerful prayer, a plea for light to triumph over darkness. The black shadow surrounding Malam Sani began to dissolve, and a piercing, desperate scream escaped his lips. He collapsed to the floor, weakened, trembling, unable to continue the fight. Zainab took a deep breath, a growing peace settling over the room. "Your time is over, Malam Sani," she said, her voice firm and commanding. "The village will be free now, and your darkness has no place here anymore." He looked up at her, eyes wide with fear and disbelief, and whispered, "How did you do this?" "It wasn't me," Zainab replied, holding the Quran tightly. "It was the power of God, stronger than any evil." With the battle over, Zainab bound Malam Sani with ropes she found in the cabin, preparing to take him to the village and reveal the truth. As she stepped outside, a crowd had already begun to gather, awakened by the commotion. When they reached the village, Zainab played the video from her phone for everyone to see. Faces shifted from disbelief to shock and horror as they watched the images of human flesh being prepared. The truth, at last revealed, dispelled fear and doubt. The villagers united, and the local authorities were called. This time, with undeniable evidence, Malam Sani was arrested, bringing his reign of terror to an end. Zainab was hailed as a hero, and her name was remembered as a symbol of faith, courage, and justice. The village of Gidandaji finally breathed easy, freed from the darkness that had threatened its peace for so long. And Zainab knew that with faith and determination, evil could always be overcome by light. The palace gate creaked as one of the guards pushed it open. Zainab stepped through with determination, her face still marked by the exhaustion of the night before, but her eyes steady, carrying with her the phone that held the recording that had brought down Malam Sani. The king's summons had come at sunrise. News of the cook's arrest had struck Gidandaji like thunder, and now the Sakin wanted to see her in person. As Zainab entered the reception hall, the king rose from his simple throne, dressed in a blue tunic and a turban embroidered with golden thread. His eyes watched her with a mixture of astonishment and respect. "Zainab," he said, approaching her with slow steps, "you have saved this village from an ancient evil and from a spell that blinded us all." She bowed her head respectfully, though her heart pounded with emotion. The king gently took her hand. "The courage you've shown cannot go unnoticed. From this day forward, you will be one of my advisors. Gidandaji needs voices like yours, just, strong, and guided by light." Zainab felt tears well up in her eyes, but she held them back. She accepted the responsibility with a simple nod. In that moment, she understood her journey wasn't over. It was only just beginning. That same afternoon, as villagers resumed their daily lives with a sense of relief, a familiar face appeared at her doorstep. Musa, the widower of Hadiza and until just days earlier, ally and lover of Malam Sani, approached slowly, eyes downcast, his face lined with remorse. Zainab opened the door without saying a word, meeting his gaze with firmness. "Zainab," he began, his voice breaking, I came to ask for forgiveness. I was blind. I couldn't see what was right in front of me. Malam Sani bewitched me, manipulated my mind. I was weak." She crossed her arms, remaining silent. The man before her was no longer the one who had once looked down on her with scorn. "I lost Hadiza. I betrayed her memory. I got involved with my wife's killer. I have no excuse." Zainab took a deep breath and responded calmly. "You were blind, Musa, but now you're free. The evil has been broken. Let that be your lesson. Honor Hadiza's memory with silence and integrity, not with excuses." He nodded, tears streaming down his face, and left without another word, the weight of guilt dragging behind each step. 2 days later, another wave of shock swept through the village. Malam Sani was found dead in his cell. The guard said he had been alone, locked inside, with no sign of violence. Only his lifeless body remained, and an expression of terror frozen on his face. Many believed his own magic had finally turned on him. Others said the spirits he had invoked had come to collect. But there was no clear explanation. The cook who had once captivated and then terrorized the village was dead, and with him, fear seemed to die too. When Zainab received the news, she felt neither relief nor satisfaction, only a calm emptiness. The evil had been cut at its root, but the wounds would take time to heal. She walked to the market, now vibrant once more, where vendors were smiling again, and the scent of familiar foods had replaced the dark aroma of the cursed suya. Some embraced her. Others simply smiled in silence. She no longer needed to explain herself. The truth was clear for all to see. In one corner of the market, 2 women whispered to each other. "I thought Zainab was overreacting," said one, her face flushed with shame. "We all did, but she was the only one brave enough," the other replied. Zainab walked past them without interrupting. She returned to her old stall and began arranging her spices. The space felt different now, lighter. She could sell in peace, no longer overshadowed by someone who had monopolized both eyes and appetites. That same week, the king organized a celebration to mark the return of peace. Drums echoed, children danced, and elders sang ancient songs of gratitude. During the event, Zainab was called forward once again. The Sakin presented her with a silver necklace, a symbol of honor in the village. "Zainab," he said before everyone, "you didn't just save this village. You taught us to listen, to question when necessary, and to never remain silent in the face of darkness." She lifted the necklace, proud yet humble. Applause rang through the central square, and for the first time in a long while, Gidandaji felt whole again. That night, Zainab sat alone in her room, the Quran on her lap. She thought of Hadiza, her laughter, the strength in her calloused hands. A single tear ran down her cheek. She whispered a prayer for her friend, for her soul, and for all those who had suffered without knowing why. Outside, the wind blew gently, rustling the leaves of the mango trees surrounding the house. Through the window, Zainab saw the clear sky, the stars twinkling like silent witnesses to all that had happened. Weeks passed. The village settled into a new rhythm, but traces remained. Children no longer asked for suya at school. Some men, who had once idolized Malam Sani, now looked away when his name was mentioned. Time did its work, healing and forgetting, but silently everyone knew some truths can never be buried forever. One evening, as she was packing up her stall, Zainab heard two women chatting near the square. "Did you see Zainab today? She was so strong that day. She looked like a warrior." "She is a warrior, but one of faith." Zainab smiled quietly. Yes, she was a warrior. But her weapon had never been a sword or a spell. It had been faith, the unwavering belief that truth, no matter how deeply buried, would always rise, just as light pierces the darkness. The next morning, she went to the cabin where Malam Sani had been held for the last time. The guards allowed her to enter. Everything was silent, abandoned. In the center of the cell, a dark stain marked the floor. No smell, no sign of struggle, just emptiness. Zainab knelt, closed her eyes and said one final prayer. May evil never again hide beneath the scent of food. May our faith always be stronger than any shadow. She stood and left, leaving the past behind, but with eyes open to the future. At the entrance to the village, a new sign had been placed. Here, where faith conquered fear, lives a people who will never be silenced. And so, Gidan Daji bloomed again. The stories of Malam Sani were told as warnings to future generations. And at the heart of it all remained the name of Zainab, the woman who faced the impossible, guided by faith and by truth.